Join channel here over at Subscribe Star. And like I said before, if you want me to see a movie, buy the ticket and the popcorn, I will see it and review it. So this movie is White April O'Neil, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, is based on the comic book with the original character April O'Neil, who is fair-skinned, obviously with a name like O'Neil. But in the various the thing is, in the comic book, she had a, what do you call that hairstyle? Where they curl the hair. It was like popular in the 70s and 80s. I want to say bouffant, but that's perm. Is that what it's called? Where I guess, yeah, it's a permanent press, right? They put a bunch of little curlers in there or something. In the various cartoons, she was depicted as like, an Irish girl, fair with red hair, and then they eventually, I think in the 80s, and 90s, race swapped her to black because that's cultural Bolshevism, where they don't create. Because they're parasites. They can only take someone else's story and subvert it and corrupt it, like just the filthy worms they are. Like they say the left can't meme, which is a fascinating study because they really can't. There's reasons behind it. It turns out they have bad ideas that can't be turned into a précis, because you're trying to summarize something bad and people can see right through it. Like the more you simplify something, the clearer it is, and you go, but you have a bad idea. No, it only looks bad because it is bad. Okay, well, let me do this long, complicated, wordy meme that brings in all these like theories that are just based on garbage. They're parasites. Anyway, so they have a hard time creating new stories that people will actually pay for. They create stories all the time. I put it on a Kickstarter. I did this thing or like whatever. And, like raise $7,000 for some comic or some book about, pansexual, furry, otherkin type of stories about just endless anal sodomy just between like tree people and wolves and just the stupidest stuff on earth. But Kickstarter puts that stuff on the front. But like when you go look Kickstarter Indigo Comics and you see what's on the front page, like, oh, cool comics, the comic ski stuff. I'm going to see like, Jawbreakers and Cyber Frog or, all the other Soul Fighter. And I feel bad if I don't mention somebody's comic. That kind of stuff. Like, no. There's furry anthropomorphic wolves who are sodomizing a Treebeard, the Ent. Who didn't, they stopped looking for their wives because they're getting sodomized by coyote people. $1,200. Congratulations on that one. And like Ethan's doing a comic that like in the first week raised $300,000 or something ridiculous. Or who's that guy Eric July is doing a comic like, yeah, $1 million for a first time comic. Oh, that's not bad. You think that should be news? You think CBR would be talking about that? Comic book news to talk about that? All these other news sites, Bleeding Cool do interviews with hey, July, come on, let's do an interview with you. Your massive success. You sold $1 million comic. Your first time, for your first comic is a hell of a, for being not being a comic guy. It's like, it's a pretty big, let's talk about that. The whole, this concept of Comicsgate and independently selling comics, that's news. Or it should be, but it's, for some magic reason, it's not. They don't like Eric July for some reason. Anyway, these are the worst people on earth. They have a hard time creating stories that sell. What was it? What was that story? What was that fat cosplayer girl? Oh, God, I forget her name. They did some Deadbeats. It was like 50 stories collected, and I think it raised like, I don't know, $50,000 or something. And you broke it down. It's like, so everyone like made 700, like everyone worked on this thing. It's like you made less than $1,000. Like you grossed less than $1,000. Like what? Man, good luck with that. That's a weird business plan. Anyway, so they have a hard time creating stories because all the stories are, just globalist propaganda, which is cancer mixed with AIDS, monkeypox, and some alcoholism. So finally, they come out and they make this $70 million movie with the parasite Seth Rogen. He's a guy who some other actor in LA was talking about getting his car broken into, and he was kind of talking about the crime in LA. And the puppet masters and their Waldos started to panic because you had somebody who was on the left and a public figure was talking about the crime in LA, which is translated into all these left-wing policies are not working. So Seth Rogen just tried to crack the whip and put him back in his place and go, ho, ho, ho. It's the Mickey Mouse laugh. He goes, oh, come on. People break into my car all the time. He's worth $100 million. People break into my $150,000 Tesla all the time. And sometimes they leave cool little pocket knives behind and stuff. Like, you got $100 million, dude. Like, everyone else in LA doesn't have that kind of money, but their cars are also, like, your Honda Civics. Your $17,000 Honda is also getting broken into. And we're paying for, like, all the stuff that's stolen because we're not worth $150 million. But Seth Rogen panicked because he didn't want anyone criticizing those left-wing policies. So as a consequence, if you're on the left, you have to ignore crime. It's friggin' bizarre. But I mean, the thing is now, that was a couple of years ago. The funny thing is in San Francisco, LA, Portland, Seattle, everywhere, crime is getting so bad that even left-wing people are talking about it. There's interviews with people you would not expect. There was one guy who 3 years ago, I forget the guy's name. He was one of the guys who was pushing the defund the police. He's a public figure. He's pushing defund the police. And 3 years later, he goes, we need the National Guard in Oakland to cut crime. Like, gee, buddy, what happened to defund the police? We're going to we're going to have social workers and people police their own. Talk about the turtles. Sorry, good point. So they make this $70 million movie. I had too much coffee this morning. With the parasite Seth Rogen, but they make her April O'Neil, fat and black, because Rogen hates white people, and I suppose he hates attractive characters that sell well. So you end up with crap that nobody wants. Another Rose Tico doll, who is famous for stopping a guy Finn from dying heroically for his friends. Thank God at the last moment, she crashes her spaceship into his, and she robs him of his glory in what was supposed to be a dramatic moment, but nobody cared about because both characters suck, and the movie sucked, and the whole trilogy sucked because Disney's run by Lucifer worshipping lizard people. Anyway, so America loves two things: obesity and sassy black genius women who are condescending to every blonde person around them. Obese and black. If you can combine those two things for an American audience, then you have yourself a winning product. It's basically, you're just printing money if you can combine those kind of things. China, unfortunately, is not run by the same lizards, so they didn't get the message. So they don't. They're not quite resonating on that frequency. They really don't understand obesity at all, and that other group. They've got some issues in China of what they prefer. So Black Panther didn't do as well in China. They said the film was not to their liking, but they said it in a much more brutally honest way that in hindsight, I recognize I should probably not say that on YouTube. So when they sell these toys overseas, they want white characters. Honestly, even if you sold the white toys in Africa, I kind of think the white toys would still sell pretty well, just because it would be more rare. Like if you're cruising around Nigeria and you go, hey, we're gonna, as an experiment, we'll sell the black Barbies, or the blonde Barbies, and see which one sells well. Like the black Barbies for sure would sell, but I think the blonde Barbies would kind of surprise you just because it's something different. Maybe, I don't know. Anyway, so they this stuff does not do as well overseas as it does in America, because America apparently loves obesity and poxwalks people, especially if they're furry otherkin and they use pronouns. Anyway, so they took the doll that's just like, the thing is, I assumed it was made in China. So you're saying it's made in China, packaged in China, and then shipped to America to be sold and then shipped back again? I'm not quite sure how that works. So they take the plastic, and instead of dunking it in black dye, they dunk it in white dye to make the doll, though she still has the dreadlocks and the same glasses. So I think that's literally all they did, was just dye the doll a little bit different color to sell it to China's probably the big market if they're into the turtles. I don't know who made the turtles, like if it was originally a Chinese brand or South Korea or Japanese. I assume it's kind of Asian. It's kind of like, I look at it and it's kind of something the Japanese would probably come up with, or the Koreans. I'm not sure. They're very creative and like that kind of stuff. Anyway, you have to be so careful on YouTube. Like constantly editing on the fly, which is, see, I want to say it's gay, but you can't say that on YouTube either. Otherwise, you'll get a hate speech strike. Anyway, like, comment, subscribe. You can send me some comics in my mailbox. Thanks to everyone who's over at Subscribe Star, and I will see you guys all next episode.